you kind of change once you start going through fight camp and you sign that contract. Your brain, there's something that flips. You're in war mode.
Combate Global fans, I am so over the moon excited to be hosting Melissa Amaya on this channel because, after all, it is called Beasts with Brains podcast, and she is 100% a beast. She is undefeated in Combate Globals and a top strawweight. I know a lot of people kind of think that you're a flyweight because you've taken fights, so many fights at flyweight at this point, and you've succeeded. But, you prefer to cut down to 115 and make your mark there. So can you kind of let the confused people know where you're standing in terms of what you want for your future in MMA?
Yeah, so the goal has always been 115. I'm 5'4". I walk around 130, 132. That's super close to 125. Like the girls that fight 125 are walking around 140, 145, maybe even more. So the goal was always 115, but I didn't have any experience under my belt. So we just took some good fights for me, some developmental fights, some tough ones clearly because I broke my hand, but it was just kind of to get my career going. And now that I'm 6-0 and it's really starting to get into the meat of stuff, and it's only going to get harder from here. I have to start practicing, not practicing, but like I have to start getting down the weight cut, how I'm going to fight at that weight and all that stuff.
One of my favorite follows is the DL training system. So I'm sure that, like, yes, making the weight is probably hard, but when you have a guy like a mastermind like Dylan, it's probably not too difficult. And you seem like a very methodical person when it comes to your training and how you prepare for fights. So how has that been, making the weight when you have to, but also just like the training regimen that you're on?
The training regimen. So I was so lucky that Rick was like, hey, I have this guy that can potentially help you with strength and conditioning. And I was doing my own stuff, but it was like bodybuilding.com. So it was more weight, like gaining weight things. It was not going to transfer to MMA really. I'm not supposed to get bigger. I'm not just supposed to get strong. I'm supposed to do endurance with strength and explosiveness. So when I met Dylan, it just clicked because I don't like doing things just to do them. Like I love knowing where I'm going. And he is a physical therapist, a doctor in physical therapy, but he loves doing the strength and conditioning. So he's dedicated. He wakes up at 4 a.m. He does his own research. He is so obsessed, and that's somebody that can completely put my trust behind. And so I just put the trust into him. He has different phases for training, whether you're out of camp, in fight camp, what part of it, is it a short notice, like all of that stuff. And then he also takes into account your weight. And he's been looking at resources to help me out with that too. So I kind of just, Jesus, take the wheel. It's more like Dylan, take the wheel. Like here, I just trust you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I think every fighter needs, is someone who can handle all of the little details that go into things, because it's so easy to screw up. You see it at the highest level with, I think it was Tracy Cortez talked about how when she was missing weight, she was just doing everything on her own, trying to figure out her macros and all that. And I'm like, it is a whole other beast to just even be training every day and focusing on that. So super happy that you got to align with him. I know it's been kind of a long time coming since your last fight, just because you had a hand injury, you re-broke it in October. I know we're over. I saw your interview with Beyond the Stripes. We don't want to talk about the hand break anymore, but with injuries like that, is it kind of hard to deal with if it's kind of like a recurring one? Like I know Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, once he broke his hand, it was just like the same thing that kind of kept breaking. So how are you in terms of that? And is it something that you kind of are mindful of during your training?
We'll see how it goes. Rick and I have been, Rick is a mastermind with striking and just the MMA game and figuring out, the game plan. And it was just this overhand punch that I've been throwing for the last 6 years. So we've been working tirelessly and fixing that, because that's what I'm used to when shit gets going. So we've been working on just changing my tube. So I'm excited to show a lot of people like what I've been doing in the last year. I've been injured, and yeah, I haven't been able to do certain things, but I have not been inactive. I've been constantly going. We have wars in the gym. Like it's been pretty good. So I'm not worried about it at all. I've actually had 2 ACL reconstructions, both legs. I'm not a stranger to having to I had to relearn how to walk, like, so I feel great. Like my hand's not an issue. Whether it's going to keep re-breaking, that's another question. Who knows with the weight cut, if it's going to compromise my bone density or all those things. Even my surgeon was kind of confused that I rebroke it. And it was just a perfect line. My plate and my screws didn't bend at all. It just straight line. So she's like, oh, I honestly can't tell you why it did. Like maybe we just jumped back into it too soon. Dylan and I were thinking about it. Like maybe we didn't strengthen it enough and we did go back too soon. And then weight cut on top of it, you know, your body's going to start pulling minerals out of your body or whatever it needs, nutrients. So maybe extra supplementation. It's kind of like a learning thing. I'm hoping for this next fight, everything goes smooth. So we'll see. It's still a learning thing, but I'm not worried about it in terms of like the mental lapse, you know, where you're holding yourself back. I've been going at it.
Yeah, I mean, I am so impressed with your mentality when it comes to dealing with injuries. Just as someone who's done a few jujitsu competitions, I'm like, am I just really injury prone? Like when it comes to certain little things that happen in combat, but you've literally had two knees reconstructed and you're like, and I'm fine, I'm better than ever. And it is kind of interesting to me that you can have this positive mindset towards it, but it's also kind of speaks volumes of like how strong the human body is and how capable it is of not healing itself. Like obviously there was like physical therapy and stuff that you've done. So has there been anything on this journey in combat sports where you're like, wow, like my body is capable of so much?
Oh, for sure. I didn't know. So everybody wants to be that person when shit hits the fan. You think, oh, I would totally be the person who stands up. I would totally be the person who pushes through the pain. I would totally do this. But the truth is you never know until you're actually in that situation. So it was really cool, as shitty as it was, to break my hand in the first round against somebody who was like Terminator and keep going. And I still threw my right hand. So it was, MMA has taught me like there's something that you wish, but it's shown me. It's undeniable. Like I do have a dog in me and I can keep building on that and it's fun. Like how can you get tired of that, you know? Like every day you go, you're working towards being a better version of yourself.
Yes, you definitely have that dog in you because when you broke your hand, it was against Julian Knoll, April 1st. It's April 2nd now, so we're like a year away from
Yeah.
that. Julian Knoll has that like come forward zombie-like style. So like she was not going to keep off the pressure as well. The last time I saw Julian, she was competing in a combat jiu-jitsu event. She lost her first match to Alex Enriquez, but then Alex Enriquez, who just competed at ADCC this past weekend, she had a concussion, so Julian was back in, and then Julian ended up winning the whole thing. So it's so funny to me that like the MMA abilities translate super well, obviously, to combat jiu-jitsu. Is combat jiu-jitsu something that you've ever considered?
Yes. I can't stop laughing and like smiling when I watch combat jujitsu. It's just so awesome and funny. Like you think you're so comfortable and then suddenly a hand comes at you and you're like, yeah, I bet you're not going to hold on to that ankle lock very much longer.
Exactly.
It excites me because I love jujitsu. It was my first love when I started in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And yeah, just incorporating the striking part of it. Yeah, definitely does interest me.
And they have a lot of events also in Mexico. Eddie Bravo's, Mexican as well. So he likes to bring the events to Mexico. Combate Global, the premier Hispanic promotion, MMA promotion. So I feel like you would just be a perfect person to have on that, especially because I love how you own the fact that you said in an interview, you're like, it's fine for me to kind of just be, this dork in the cage and like not have this like angry persona or like, try to act like something that I'm not. Obviously, I think you're very intimidating still, but I feel like you still own the fact that you're like, no, I'm just kind of like a nerd that likes to challenge myself. So seeing you, put into the MMA cage or a combat jiu-jitsu setting, it's just so funny to me because like the personality discrepancies between what you do in the cage and who you are outside are so different.
And for the longest time, I struggled with that, like, what is it called? When you don't feel like you belong, like you feel an imposter.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, I felt, it wasn't until really in the past year where I started to kind of step into my light and like, yeah, when your words you don't really feel it, but you finally do feel it. That's the place I'm in now because you see all these girls and they're like, oh, like, angry, they have a reason, or you think they have a purpose as to why they're fighting, and you need that to be good in there. It's like, that's not true. Everybody has their own lane. Pick your own. What's yours is yours. Don't look to the side. That's not your road. Like, what do you want to do? What can you accomplish? And just kind of, do that.
Yeah, I definitely love how I feel like the way you look at it too, it's very sports minded. And because you have such a background in, basketball and track and field from your high school days and probably younger than that as well, I feel like the way you are looking at fighting is just like a way to challenge yourself. And I feel like sometimes even that is better because it doesn't like necessarily alleviate all of the pressure, but like at the end of the day, you're doing this just to push yourself and to challenge yourself. So is there still, and if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not what you're doing it for, let me know. Because like, what is like your why at this point in your career? You're 6-0, there's talk about, belts for Combate Global being thrown out at some point. So like, what is your big goal with this?
So I'm just progressing, like, do the next step, keep challenging myself. If a belt opportunity presents itself, obviously I'll take it. Like, that's the next natural step. But in my heart, like, I care about winning and losing. It sucks to lose, but it's my identity's not tied to it. If I win and I do terrible, I'm gonna feel like shit. It doesn't matter. If I lose in the future, and if you fight long enough, you're gonna lose. It just is what it is. And if I lose in the future, if I give everything I have and I literally have nothing left inside of me, yeah, it's gonna be sad to lose, but what more can you give? You can only give as much as you can give. You know, Empty your cup, and there's nothing else. And I feel like I would be okay with that.
Do you feel like any of the sports that you played as a child or teenager have helped you with your fight career now?
Yes and no. I was an extremely sore loser. I would punch walls, like kick seats. I was like pissy. Like, our team could have won, but if I threw way too many turnovers, if I did something wrong, I would go home and obsessively like have a little 4x6 card, rewind. Oh, you messed up here, you messed up there, and I focused so much on mistakes. It was unhealthy. But at the same time, I do feel like it helped because I'm so used to pushing myself to failure, to sickness, to injury since I was 7 years old. Like, my older brother helped me with that, which is nice. He set a good example and he kind of created this warrior mindset. And in my head, I always wanted to impress him. So it was just natural for me to do that. Yeah. So
Is your brother older than you?
yeah, I have two older brothers. But it's the second oldest one, Ricardo, that he would buy me like Nike gear. He bought me track, like the spikes, a bungee cord, a parachute. Imagine a little middle schooler doing things like that and
That's so
throwing up.
cool.
That was my norm. If I wasn't pushing myself to exhaustion, I didn't do well. Which is another thing. Like, in MMA, I've had to learn that that's not okay. That's not sustainable. It's a good mindset if you need to in the cage, push yourself. But for sustainability and prolonged like career, you gotta reel it back, listen to your body, and do things in a different way, because that's a very old school way of thinking.
Yeah, longevity in the sport is so hard to come by at this point, but I feel like with the science and the things that we're learning as a community is making it better for all the fighters. So I just find it very interesting that your brother is the one who kind of got you into this more warrior mindset. So if you're the baby of the family, how does your older brothers and your family feel about their baby girl getting into La Jaula and fighting people?
I have three brothers, a younger one too, and being the only girl, like, the discussion with when I told my dad about it, I just said, this is what I'm doing. If you're on board, that's great. If not, I'm sorry, but this is what I'm going to do. And that's a hard thing when you have Hispanic parents and you really respect them, but you just know, like, this is what I'm going to do. So I just kind of told them, like, it is what it is. You can support me and I would love that. But if not, your baby girl's going to get in a cage and fight.
Wow. And they were like, okay.
I mean, my dad and my parents, every time I ask or I talk about my practice, are you sure you're practicing defense? Are you practicing this? Are you practicing that? And I'm like, yes. and keeping my patience throughout that. I'm like, yes, I just have to, you know, ease their anxieties, because I can't imagine. Like, I saw a little kid be mean to my niece, and I felt angry. I was like, I don't care if you're two, I'll go off on you, you know? So I can't imagine like your only daughter getting in a cage and watching her get hurt. You know, you just want to protect them, and that's it. All comes down to wanting to protect somebody. But
But tell me about that matchup and how excited you are to get back in the cage come June 8th.
I'm super excited. I've been doing a lot of work. I've been improving in the last year. I feel like I'm a completely different fighter, that I've built on it. So I'm excited to show people that, and myself, you know. Again, it's about bringing it from here to actual performance. Been doing a lot of mindset training as well. I just finished this 8-week course with Mindset Mike, and I've struggled with enjoying my fights. I haven't really. There are little moments like when Naomi kicked me when I was on the ground. I was like, "This is really happening right now." It's like, you know. But other than moments like that, I didn't enjoy fight week. I didn't really enjoy any of it. Other than the training, I loved the training, but I kind of was just surviving through the fight stuff. And I feel like it's going to be different this time around. I'm going to be able to be more present and enjoy it and have a war. I saw my opponent. I saw some film on her yesterday, and I was like, all right, this chick is balls to the walls. Let's go. Like, this is a great reintroduction to me after being out for a whole year.
Yeah, I was going to say this girl that you're matched up with, nicknamed Spicy. She does bring that spice into combat. She has a lot more experience than some of the other people that you have faced. So when you're looking at that matchup and just from the little things that you've seen, like what excites you about it?
She's just hard hitting. Like, when she goes, she goes. And that's, I don't know. I don't feel like I've had somebody like that. Like, yeah, Jillian did go forward, but it also stopped. There was a break moment there.
Mm-hmm.
This girl, she doesn't stop. She will gas herself out just going all out. She just tense the entire time and just going, you know? So I don't know. That just kind of excites me, because out of all my fights, my favorite one where I felt the most safe and comfortable is the one against the Dutch kickboxer, Naomi.
Mm-hmm.
But you look back at it and it was very close. She's a hard hitter. It was go. More technical than I think this next one will be. But at the same time, I feel like I love that kind of pace. So I think I'm going to thrive in this situation.
And you said that your favorite fight was the fight against Naomi at Tataragolu.
Yeah.
Wow, that one was a very interesting one. Yeah, because I think there was like a little bit of like translation confusion when she was kicking you while you were down. And so you talked a little bit about how in that fight week it was hard for you to enjoy, and you've been working with Mindset Mike, who is phenomenal at what he does. And that's awesome that you're getting to align with him. Uh, can you tell me about like what is it maybe about the fight week itself that you're not enjoying? You're feeling like, is it like the anxiety of it? Is it just the weight cut? Like what is it that you have been able to figure out is something that you're not enjoying and what you're working on with your mindset?
So the weight cut part is the easier part, and because it's so definitive, it is what it is. You have a goal. There's a way to get there. It's science.
Mhm.
The fight, win or lose, you have no control over that. And my anxiety was like, I have to perform. I just have to show up. I have to go in there and do what I have to do. Like, I wasn't I wasn't thinking of it in terms of, if I give everything I have, I'm okay with it. I just felt like everything has to go right. And I had to be serious the whole time. I didn't know how to go about it, you know? Again, I think that was one of those things of like trying to model other people, like being serious, nobody talk to me, you know, changing. You kind of change once you start going through fight camp and you sign that contract. Your brain, there's something that flips. You're in war mode. You have a goal in mind. You're gonna go to war, and that's the only thing that's in your mind, and it becomes exhausting. So the fight week, you're kind of like, oh man, like all this anxiety of performance. When in reality, there's nothing you're gonna learn in fight week. There's nothing you can change in fight week. All you have to do is trust your training and you go in there. And that's exactly what I do during my fight anyways. Like, even though I had the pre-fight anxiety, I still perform. I know how to get in there and just do my thing. And it doesn't, I don't think it affects me, but I think I could do better. I don't do terrible, but I think I can do a lot better.
Is there a point in the fight day where the anxiety and stuff seems to go away? Because a lot of people either say it's like right as they, touch hands for the first time, or on the walkout where everything starts to feel like, hey, I've put in all the work. Now is the time. And like, what moment is it for you where you just like start to like forget about all the like pre-fight anxiety and you're like in that mode?
The second I start walking into the cage, it's done. And a lot of people say that they remember them closing the cage and everything. No clue. I don't even, I'm like, I'm in there. Why am I going to pay attention to that? I just stare at my opponent. I'm like, this is like, let's go. The whole build up, that kind of bothers me, but I know it's production and introduction, build up and all that. I'd rather just like go, but I think the second I walk into the cage, that's when I'm like, all right, we're here.
I'd imagine that part of the reason why fight week is probably not as enjoyable is just because as an athlete, you're so used to like being able to work out every day and go hard. Whereas like with the fight week, you have to like tone it back. You have to be resting. And then now it becomes all, a mental thing. But that's awesome that you're working with Mindset Mike. He's someone that I definitely would love to work with because I'm the same way with my jujitsu competitions. I just feel like I'll like obsess and try to be learning things the week of. And I'm like, okay, this isn't like actually going to be doing anything. Like I'm not going to look up a technique and pull it out randomly, looking at it before a YouTube channel.
It's like crash study for an exam. It's just not going to stick. If you don't know it by then, you're not going to know.
And you're getting such good training in over there with Sick Jiu-Jitsu. What are some of the training partners that you're working with, and are they able to emulate the kind of style that you need when it comes to bringing a certain technique into the cage?
Yes, I've been extremely fortunate that my partners have been modeling my opponents, my training partners. For Jillian, Hedda, thank you, Hedda. Coach had him come at me because he's like, she's gonna be a Terminator and she's not gonna stop. Hedda did exactly that, and holy shit, he landed so many punches, and I was just like, practice, focus on your breathing, just get in there, just do what you have to do, adjust. But Hedda was just pressure, 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 and I was like, damn. So when Jillian was pressure, 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 I was expecting it. When she stopped, I was like, my brain was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not pressuring me more? Like, she allowed me to breathe. She allowed me to have a moment, and that's how I would plant and go in there, and every time I would land on her face, like, it was exactly how we practiced, even though I didn't practice breaking my hand. The whole fight went exactly how we practiced.
Yes, that's definitely a very fun fight to watch because Jillian was relentless, always, pushing through. And she's had some fights where like her face is completely, swollen up and like she's still smiling and her whole vibe. So it's definitely interesting to see, the different personalities that we get in La Jaula. Is there anyone on the Combate Global roster, and it could be from flyweight or strawweight division, that you were particularly like, oh, I wanna match up with that person?
I'd have to think about that.
Because the Combate Global roster is so fluent sometimes, but I know that the strawweight division, I feel like the only, really active people are you. I know Camila Rivarola hasn't fought in a while, but she'd be fun. I know Jade
really good. That would be a cool one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's good. Which I don't know why her standing is where it is, but what is Andrea Amaro? She's number 4, 3 or 4.
Yeah, but I'm not, and she just competed at ADCC trials this past weekend. So I'm not sure if she's like, looking for a combate fight, but she would be, a fun one to get back in the cage as well.
I wouldn't fight her again. I don't want to go backwards. Unless if it's for a title belt, yeah. But I'd rather keep challenging myself with somebody new. But the reason I brought her up is because she was my second fight ever, and I finished her in the first round. So there's certain people that I'm like, oh, Camila, you know, would probably be like the next big test.
Claire Lopez, she's
Claire
been
Lopez is good.
competing in Tokyo. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one. She's a firecracker too. That'd be fun.
Yeah. That sneaky dog bar. If you don't know it's coming too, ooh, it can sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite submission?
Do I have a favorite submission?
Yeah.
No.
Just like it
But
all, whatever comes
I'm
your
really
way.
good at my triangle.
I like that. And I like how when you had your triangle locked in against Alitzel, I'm pretty sure it was, your corner advised you like, hey, we don't want you sitting down for this. We want to keep those muscles going and keep the blood flowing. How important is it to have the people that you have in your corner giving you the type of advice that I feel like you would only learn through experience?
Well, since I work so closely with Rick, there's just a different relationship between fighter and coach. In practice, if I hear I can hear him from the other side of the gym, and I'll completely like change my stuff or try to change it up and do what he's telling me. It's the same thing in the cage. I can hear him saying, like, there's this one time I tried to go again for a guillotine, and he saw me reaching over, and he's like, "No, we're wrestling here. No." And I immediately let go. I was like, "Oh, okay, yes." Because there's an instinct, and then there's something else that you should do that maybe the fighter isn't like, you know, realizing like, let's not do this again. Let's try a different approach. So I think it's really important. I mean, at the end of the day, they can't be in there fighting for you, but they can help you see things that it's maybe not taking you a little bit longer to process, you know?
Yes, it's so funny the amount of coaches that say don't go for the guillotine, but then the fighters will go for the guillotine. You had Dustin Poirier, D. Begley did the same thing in Combate. But yeah, sometimes when you feel like you have it, you just gotta go for it. And so when we look at all the wins that you have, we have Giselle Garcia, that was your pro debut. Andrea Amara, Yeska Ortega, a win over Naomi Alitzel and Jillian Knoll. I know you said that your favorite fight was Naomi. When you're looking at the list of people that we just said, is there any other person that you have a win over that you were like, oh, I'm especially impressed with that win?
I think it might have been the Jillian one. Just because I fought through a broken hand. And it was more of the mental aspect of overcoming certain things. I wasn't feeling too good mentally that time, but I pushed through it, and I talked myself through the whole fight. I was like, breathe, you're good. And then just kind of work through it. And, you know, luckily I got the decision. You don't ever want to go to decision. You want to finish it, but I did the best I could at that time, and I was more proud of that one in terms of myself versus the performance, you know.
Who is the best striker in Combate Global? Let's do women's.
Oh man, that's a hard one. I think Maritza.
Maritza?
She's
She's tough. Biggest training partner pet peeve?
Complaining.
That's an annoying one. Who is your biggest fighter inspiration?
I guess it's more like close to home thing. Juliana Pena. Yeah, it's great to see somebody win and win the title, but to see her, it gave me the chills to see the dog in her, and like, again, you know, got shit kicked in, but she didn't stop. And that's something nobody teaches you. That's just something you have, and that like gives me the chills. Like every time something's going hard in practice, I try to channel my Pena.
And she's always had that mentality about her, even when we were looking back at The Ultimate Fighter. It's kind of funny how the MMA world kind of goes full circle, because you're close with Juliana Miller as well, who ended up winning The Ultimate Fighter with Juliana Pena as her coach. So when did the connection with Juliana Miller happen? Did it happen through Juliana Pena, or were you guys always kind of, you know, training together?
No, that happened through The Ultimate Fighter. I was brought on as a training partner for The Ultimate Fighter. And, you know, people always say, like, we'll link up after, or people always talk, and they never actually follow through. But Miller actually did. She cornered me for my last few fights. Like, she's followed through with what she said. So that's why everything's worked out, you know?
Oh, I love that. I genuinely have just such a fandom of Killer Miller. I met her at a High Rollers event and I always knew that she had like a great energy, but like meeting her in person and being able to be around her aura, I was like, you are just such a likable and loving present human being. And like seeing her journey in the UFC, obviously, you know, starting so strong with the Ultimate Fighter and then having some setbacks. How is it like being a friend in those times, like when you're uh, training partner or friend, you know, isn't getting the results that they want? Like, how are you able to be a supportive person in those moments?
Just listen. You really can't say anything. Like, they're gonna have to go through whatever they have to go through. It's like if somebody dies or somebody has this misfortune, it doesn't matter how much talking you do, they're gonna have to process it on their own, you know? Sometimes you're a punching bag, sometimes you can offer nice advice, but for the most part, just listen.
And when do you feel like, sorry, this is kind of getting off my
You're good.
rapid questions, but you just have such a maturity to you. I know you're, you know, you live with your husband and you're married and you are very systematic with the way you do things. When do you feel like in your 20s you hit like a different level of mental maturity and
Probably
emotional maturity?
last year.
Really?
Last year, a couple years ago. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't feel my age. I always was looking around for the adults in the room. And yeah, it wasn't until the last 2 years, last year, that I actually felt like, yeah, I'm me. I've got me. I am what I have. To stop looking around, you know, I am the adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have been a registered nurse for over 6 years now, and you got to experience being a nurse during COVID times. So, what was that experience like trying to, you know, keep up with your training and then also working during the pandemic and gyms being closed? What was that whole experience like for you?
It was weird. I was fortunate enough to have jumped the ship from the ICU to a gastrointestinal. So it's more procedural based. It's
Mhm.
elective. So we had a lot of cases canceled. I didn't have to be in there with my, I've heard so many stories from friends that did stay in critical areas, and it just, the mental health, you know, just toilet bowling, like seeing the healthcare system not handle things the way you wish they did. But I didn't get to really experience that. Like I did experience having to gown up, just all the protocols that were like shoved down your throat. Um, but I think the training was a solace. Like I know we weren't supposed to be training, but you know people were training, like, kind of
Yeah.
like speakeasies, but a gym style. um, that was a little weird because I remember showing up to work and there's no patients, and you hear everybody's in a huddle and they're like, "Okay, so COVID is officially here," and it kind of sends a chill down your spine because at that time you don't know what's happening, you don't know how bad it's gonna be, you know. In hindsight, it's like, oh, this is like kind of like the flu, but at the time, you're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, like, what does this mean? And then driving to work and being considered an essential worker and not seeing any cars, it's just weird. It's this weird post-apocalyptic like feeling.
Yeah, it was such a crazy time, and I'm so happy we're all so far past it. And I feel like it really gave everyone a different view on a whole lot of things. But that's awesome that you were able to, you know, continue training at that time. I remember when I did the opposite of what everyone did. I did Florida to California during 2020. So I also understood the speakeasy vibes of like continuing to train because it just honestly made it worse if you weren't getting your physical activity in and like scared about this, you know, disease that might come and kill you and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
It was
Or you
definitely
might kill somebody else because you're exposed to it and you're with somebody who's like immune compromised for something. Like, God forbid you're responsible for somebody dying.
exactly. It was freaking crazy times, but glad we got past it.
Yeah.
And continuing on with our much lighthearted rapid fire. What type of music does La Mamba listen to before a fight?
Oh, before? Depends how close. If I'm on my way in the shuttle, I'm listening to R&B, like Let It Burn, Usher type of slow beats because I need to. I'm super sensitive to music. I will fire like a fire just if it's too hype. So I have
Yeah.
to kind of calm myself down. But right before, I don't think I listen to music right before when I'm warming up. Yeah.
Yeah, just focused in it. I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Favorite comedian?
Oh, that's a hard one. Tom Segura is hilarious. I
Who
love
is
him.
it?
Tom Segura.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look him
Also,
up.
Dave Chappelle, old school like
Yeah, Dave Chappelle.
inappropriate. Everybody's fair game for him. It does not matter. It's
Yeah,
hilarious.
he's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Any hidden talents?
Hidden?
Yes.
Oh, no. I
Yeah,
feel like
you're
it's
just
pretty
open
out
about
there.
all of them. Singing is your talent that I know you're not gonna hide. You want to keep promoting that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's something that you're so good at.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my first love. There's a video of me singing and dancing on a table when I was like 1 year old in my little diaper to Selena.
I love that. That's so adorable. And who would you want by your side in a street fight of the Combate Global roster?
Ooh, in a street fight?
Yeah.
Maritza.
Maritza, she would definitely. She knows how to
Hammer
flip
fist,
those
left and
hands.
right.
And your go-to cheat meal.
Oh, that's a hard one. My go-to cheat meal. Honestly, I love chicken and waffles. It sounds terrible.
That
But
sounds like
there is a cheat like the after every fight. I love this place here, McKinsey River. They have a flourless chocolate cake, and it's the it is so good. Yeah, that one.
that sounds amazing. Flourless chocolate. It reminds me of something in Virginia. Flourless chocolate waffles. Somehow they make it without the gluten. Ooh, and then this final one. Favorite travel destination.
Ooh, Italy so far. My
What part?
husband and I went last year. Oh my god.
What part did you guys go to?
Everywhere. We went down to Rome, to Bologna. We went to
Oh,
Ginevra. Um, ah, Venice, obviously.
I
Yeah,
love that. I know
Florence.
maybe
Mhm.
after this fight, you'll hopefully get, some type of vacation time in there because I know you've been working super hard and now we have the June 8th date to look forward to. Is there any sponsors, teammates, anyone that you want to give a shout out to or thank? I know you work with a lot of great people, so the floor is yours.
Of course, Mindset Mike, Dylan Lemery, Kevin Suth is one of my sponsors. He's just amazing. He's a voiceover actor, but he supported me. I don't know why you chose me, but thank you. And then Charlie Givas too. He's been there since the beginning. Palanque Restaurant. My friend Hedda, his family owns it, and amazing food. And then of course Rick Little. Thank you for seeing something special in me 3 years ago and turning me into this monster. Thank you.
An undefeated Combate Global star on the rise, representing Mexico. We didn't do any of this interview in Spanish because I'm still very insecure about my Spanish speaking skills, but she's also bilingual. So she does everything. And Melissa, we cannot wait to see you back in action. Definitely a fan favorite on this Combate Global roster. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I love your energy. So this was fun.